Welcome back to RGR. I'm Ryan, and this is me going rogue. Things are changing in Kansas City, around the league as well, but we have to get to a couple of things. They are under the gun, and I saved this video to really record during the day to see what happens with how the Chiefs are going to get to the salary cap, and they have made a decision. They were able to restructure Frank Clark, and that has really helped them in terms of getting under the cap number that they have to get to. And that is really what allows them to move forward without having to make bad deals or let players go for no value like we've seen from the Texans, from the Jaguars, all kinds of things. Our friend Nick Foles is on the move, going back to another old friend of Matt Nagy. So there's some interesting connections going on around the league. And it really goes back to show you just how much this league is based on relationships. And if you know somebody from somewhere else and you have that comfort level, it really makes things easier for you to get things done that you want to. Whether that's changing an offense, whether that's adding to an offense, especially that familiarity between play caller and quarterback really makes a difference. Now, there's going to be a lot more moves. We have seen a couple of things. The Raiders have been very, very active around the NFL, trying to push the Chiefs for that AFC West. This Clark deal allows the Chiefs to compete in terms of what they do next. We're going to get to that in a second. I think the Raiders' moves are pretty intriguing, and if you're a Raiders fan that happens to be watching this, I think you should be pretty happy with what they're doing. They're putting out a very good effort to try and compete in this division, which has been a tough go of late, to tell you the truth. So kudos to them. That's something that I think will pay off for them down the line. I don't know that it puts them anywhere close to competing with the Kansas City Chiefs at this point, but it does give them a bolster. Likewise, it looks like Joe Flacco is on his way out of Denver, with the confirmation that they are all in on Drew Lock. So you Mizzou fans should enjoy that. I know it's kind of a cross complication there, having a Mizzou guy that you want to root for in the league, but he happens to play for Denver, and it makes things tough. But they're also adding in other places. They're trying to compete as well. And I really do see right now that there's a big question mark in LA with Philip Rivers moving out of there. But I do feel like the Chargers are still a little bit ahead of where the Broncos are. Broncos let Connor McGovern go, another Mizzou guy. I think he ended up with the Jets, and I think that's going to be good for him. He needed a new start. I don't think that he was getting what he needed there, and I do still have some faith that Connor McGovern's going to be able to make himself yet another payday. I think he'll get a third contract in the NFL unless he hits some injury string. What they've done in the meantime in Denver is bring in Glasgow. They just signed Casey Terrell today, or traded for him, and that's really, really impressive. They were making a big push to get DJ Reader, which is going to give you push up the middle. They don't play the same position. It's not a one-for-one, but here's the thing. Derek Wolfe is a guy that's probably leaving for them. They have to compete with the Chiefs, and they have to get those guys in the middle to try and bog that down, try to get some pressure on Mahomes up the gut when you know that you have pass rushers like Chubb and Von Miller on the outside. So it all goes together, and the fact that they missed out on Reader, I think, is what drove them back towards Jarrell. And that's a good pickup for them. That makes them a little bit tougher. So that puts the impetus back on Kansas City about getting the offensive line squared away. Now, that all has to come after the Chiefs work out what they're doing right now. Getting under the cap with the restructure for Frank Clark, that structure originally was so lopsided between years 1 and 2 that it was pretty much screaming for a restructure anyway. So my guess is that this was all in their plan, and they had worked this out with Frank and his representation ahead of time. And I think that's great for them. I think that helps them get things done when you can share that kind of longer-term plan with your players. They are certainly bought in on Frank Clark, and I know some Chiefs fans are a little bit frustrated with him. That shouldn't be a concern. They're convinced, and I think you're going to see better things from Frank Clark as this defense gets squared away again. Now, that allows them to be under the cap, to be compliant with the league, and to continue down this road that I really feel the fact that they haven't either restructured, and Nate Taylor of The Athletic did report that they have no plans. They're not currently trying to restructure anyone else, which is what I thought might be going on with Sammy Watkins. The fact that it isn't, if that report is true anyway, tells you that they have two options then. If they're not trying to restructure Sammy, they're either trying to move him in via a trade, or they've gotten no response from the league whatsoever, and they're just planning on doing a release. I think those are probably equally available there. I just don't see people trading for that contract. His contract is so heavy, I don't know that somebody's going to buy in for it, especially when you see what happened with Hopkins and what a low trade that was. Now it's got the Bill O'Brien effect, so you can't really base everything on that. You did see a first-round pick come in for Stephon Diggs, who doesn't make as much money as Sammy. But I do feel like there might be one or two teams that want to pull the trigger. There's a scramble right now for wide receiver and defensive line talent in the league, much more so than I expected, which tells you that the league doesn't see the wide receiver and the defensive line group in as high a light as maybe the draft analysts on Twitter do. Clearly, I've been pretty low on this defensive line draft class since the beginning, and the Combine did nothing to dissuade me from that. There's very little in terms of overall extra special athleticism. So that's something that you have to base those interior guys on. You either have to be super strong like Derek Nottie. You got to have some exploitive quick speed like Chris Jones, or you got to have some kind of mixture of both like Colin Saunders. Saunders is a guy that I think he's going to take a step forward this next season, but you never know exactly how that's going to go based on what he's done in the past. I think it's going to be a little bit more towards the quick game, a little bit more towards the penetrative type play. And that's what I don't see from this draft class. You're going to have some guys come down inside that maybe played edge in college that I think have to be the 5 techs, maybe even farther interior, like AJ Epinesa, even Jason Strobridge, who stood up some. And I really do like his play. I think he's one of the prototypical guys that Steve Spagnuolo might actually really like in this class, but he's going to be way farther down because they're just not as explosive. They're not as seasoned in their pass rush in particular. There's going to be a couple of guys at the top, and then it's going to fade off. Wide receiver class, we've felt has been pretty deep. I think the league feels that too, but again, I don't feel like they feel that it's that deep at the top. I'm guessing that most online draft analysts have more first-round wide receivers than the league does. I feel like especially teams like the Texans, now you have to do something in Indianapolis, right? You have to add to that group as well, I think. I think that puts the impetus on teams higher up in the top 15 to go after wide receivers, which I think the depth is there in the wide receiver class, but I don't think there's that many number ones. I think there's 4 wide receivers that can go in the first round. That's about it. After that, it's going to be about depth, who can mature in what role. And I think that's important for the Chiefs to know, but the whole league has to know that as well. And so that brings us back to what the Chiefs have to be looking for along the defensive line. They still have the ability to move Chris Jones. I do think that they are working on that. I think that is ultimately what happens. I think all these other contracts that are going around, all these trades, I think are kind of jumbling the market right now. So I look for it to settle down a little bit before they can get that done. Sammy and Chris Jones have to get done before anything else in terms of adding players or anything like that. And I do feel that's the direction that it's going. This second wave of free agency, it's going to die down here in the next day or two. And then I think there's going to be a defined second wave. And what that means is that you can get a little bit more bargain for a little bit lower price. And I think that's where the Chiefs are going to make the trade and make some acquisitions. Haven't heard anything about anybody having serious interest in Chris Harris, so I think that's still probably out there. I know Tyrann Mathieu thinks so. We'll see if the Chiefs organization does. And again, that goes back to a draft class that while there's some high-end talent in Okudah, definitely, C.J. Henderson probably, beyond that, you get a lot of guys that should fall all the way to the Chiefs. Guys that are borderline first-round picks or maybe just top of the second picks. I think the league doesn't see as much in the defensive back class as, again, the online analysts do. So I feel like this is slipping towards what we see in free agency being more of a roadmap as to what we're going to see in the draft than we get in normal years. I think That's perfectly fine. But you need to pay attention to it. I need to pay attention to it. And the fact that they're going after so many free agent defensive backs tells me that they're not as high on the defensive back class in the draft as a lot of outside sources are. So I expect guys to fall and not be, I don't think there's going to be 5 corners in the first round. I do feel like there's going to be less. And there's going to be a lot of guys there at 32 if the Chiefs make that pick for them to choose from. I'm going to have a review of Trayvon Diggs, who I think is one of those guys that I have as a high-end 2 that I think will be right there at 32. Maybe Christian Fulton gets there as well. Maybe I'll take a look at him as well. I'm going to do a film review here for the next video for you. Should be out on Friday. I may throw up something like this again if something strange happens, and we're just going to play it by ear. So keep it tuned here. If you're new to this channel, make sure you hit that sub. Make sure you hit the bell so you know when you get a new video that goes up. Leave your comment below. Let me know what you think and where you think this is going. And leave a thumbs up if you like this particular video. I appreciate you checking out these other ones, and I appreciate everything that you guys do for me, all of you subs. It's been a great run, and we're going to continue it. This is the time where it starts to get exciting. So that's where the Chiefs stand and where we stand together as a group today as they're getting ready to go through the rest of this. So if you're new around here, make sure you hit the sub button, the little bell notification so you know when something new goes up. Leave your comment below. We want to know what you think. And leave a thumbs up if you like this video. Appreciate you guys hanging out and checking this out. I'm going to have more for you. I'm going to do a film review of Trayvon Diggs, the cornerback out of Alabama. That'll probably be up on Friday, so watch for that. I'll have any breaking news, have a little bit of reaction to that as well. Thanks for joining this one. Check these out, and I'll check you next time.